You've got ideas, you've got ambition, you've got no time, or so you think. I'm Marissa Lonick, and I help busy moms with big dreams and no time. Join me each week as I dive into time management strategies, goal setting and achieving framework, and inspiring guests who are juggling mom life, work life, fill in the blank life. Dreams don't work unless you do, and just because you're a mom doesn't mean you can't still make it happen, whatever it means to you. Welcome to the Mama Work It podcast. Hello, mama friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Mama Work It podcast. I am excited to chat with my guest today, ToriAnn Perkey, a recruiting guru and online business management expert. As co-founder of IntegrateUp, ToriAnn helps people who want to work online get hired by visionary CEOs looking to build their dream teams. She believes that every person who deserves the freedom and flexibility to build the life they want can do so while working remotely. So if you are listening today and wanting to transition into a work from home opportunity, you are tuning into the right episode. ToriAnn, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me, Marissa. I'm so excited to be here.
Great. Well, first things first, I always like to ask my guests, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got started in this line of work?
Yeah, absolutely. So after working for just a year or two in corporate after I got married, came home and was a stay-at-home mom, 4 kids, homeschooling, the whole thing, just fully engaged in that stay-at-home life. And then in about 2013, I kind of had some things change in my life and decided I wanted to do more. And so got started just like dabbling online with different things, the blog, or I thought, oh, maybe I'll do a little bit of life coaching. I was just doing all these different things and kind of fell into doing online business management. I didn't even know that was a thing where people could hire you to basically run their companies at home. And by then I had learned some things about entrepreneurship and business. And so I was doing that. And in the course of that, I met my business partner, Laura. And Laura came to me one day. We had worked together for a while. She moved out, or we moved on. And then she said, what if we created a company where we manage businesses together? And I said, well, that sounds like fun, because I didn't like working alone. I wanted a partner. And so she and I did that. And very quickly, we realized that the number of people who wanted to hire us to do business management far exceeded the number of people we could have, like we could take on as clients. And so Laura, who is definitely the high risk taker of the two of us, was like, hey, can we hire someone to help you fill that position? And the person said, well, yeah, sure. And we quickly realized that we wanted to pivot from just having 1 or 2 clients to serving lots of clients and helping lots of digital entrepreneurs hire service providers, employees in the online remote space. And so we've been doing that the last 2 years, and I foresee us doing that for quite a while in the future because it is just going like gangbusters. We happened to just start right before COVID and when everyone was transitioning to working from home, and a lot of people kind of changed their thoughts about that. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit about my journey from stay-at-home mom to, CEO and co-founder of this company that I run.
Amazing. I love that. So you've kind of dabbled in all the areas of life, right? You've been a corporate employee. You've been a stay-at-home mom. You've even been a homeschool teacher. Many of us were homeschool teachers by default in 2020, not something we signed up for. And then you decided that, working from home was something you wanted to do. You wanted to add to, the job of being a mom and being a teacher, right? And you decided that you were going to help other businesses and support them in this way. And now you're helping lots of other people do the same. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I love the most about what we get to do is we get to play matchmaker. So you get overwhelmed CEOs and you get people who want to work for companies. And both of them have a very high need, and they're so happy when they find each other. And so it is so fun to be right in that middle spot of bringing these happy relationships together that hopefully, go off and be really long-term positive relationships, building companies and scaling in their skill sets and what they need. I love that.
Yeah, and you get to work from home, which I know for many working moms, this is a great option. What do you think are the biggest benefits to working remotely?
So for me, hands down, and I think this is the same for a lot of people, it's the flexibility of being able to work from home. The fact that I can roll out of bed and work for a couple hours before my kids get up. They're all teenagers now, so they don't get up super early. And then I can stop, and I can stop at 10 in the morning because we still homeschool, right? So one of my benefits is the flexibility that I can choose when and how I work when I want to homeschool. So I can stop at 10 a.m. and we can school for a couple hours, and then they can go off and do their thing, and I can do more work in the afternoon, or I can work in the evening. And my partner has the same flexibility, but her kids go to school and she's done at 3 o'clock. So that flexibility is huge. And I think it also allows me to do things that I don't think I could do otherwise. It allows me to be a mom and to be more than just a mothering person, right? The person who cooks dinner or cleans the house or does laundry. I can also do fulfilling things that are completely independent of my family without sacrificing that family time that's so important to me. So I think those are, for me, two of the biggest benefits.
Yeah. I'm a mom and a wife too. I work from home, and I know how sometimes those lines can get a little bit blurred when it comes to work life and home life. So I'm curious from your perspective, what are some ways that you manage both working from home and being a busy wife and mom kind of simultaneously?
Yeah, I think over the years, what I've learned is I kind of tend to do time blocking, which is one time management style. And so I like the idea of picking and choosing how I'm going to spend different chunks of my time and then being really intentional in that time. So if I'm working, I'm working. And if I'm with my kids or I'm doing something else, I'm doing that thing. And it allows me to kind of let go of the stress of feeling like I should always be somewhere else. And I think it's easy to fall into that trap of you're with your kids but you feel like you should be working, and if you're working you feel like you should be spending more time with your kids. So getting really clear beforehand allows me to kind of relax into that, and that's kind of how I find balance, and I'm able to communicate that to my family as well, and able to say, hey, this is when I'm available, this is when I'm not available. And what I love about that is then they know when I'm going to be around and when they need to kind of be more self-sufficient. And that doesn't mean I'm not available for emergencies, of course, right? Like if something happens, something happens. But it means that everyone feels more the flexibility of that because they know what to expect is really powerful.
Yeah. Now, your kids are older now. You said they're teenagers, but could you have done this, do you think, when they were younger? Because a lot of our listeners have younger kids or babies, and I'm curious, like, if you think this is still a fit for someone who's in that season of life.
Absolutely. So I wasn't working client facing where I had to get on calls that were, high end client type calls when I had little kids, but I was still doing different types of things that would have required the same kind of focus, whether it was volunteer work or whatever. And I think what you do is you get really good at blocking off the time when you know that you can't be giving your kids attention. So I would use early morning, I would use late at night, I was homeschooling, but I always had quiet time chunks during the day, which was nap time. And that's when I would get my work done. And if I had really big commitments, sometimes I would trade with a neighbor or a friend and say, okay, can you take my kids for a couple hours and then I'll take your kids for a couple hours. So I don't think it would have been realistic for me to say, oh, I could work a 50-hour week job from home and do all the other things I was doing. I don't think that would have worked. But I was certainly putting in 15, 20 hours a week in volunteer capacities. And I would have just chosen to do different kind of work. I would have done, say, virtual assistant work that would have allowed me a lot of time where I would have been on, say, Slack or email, but I wouldn't necessarily have to be on a Zoom call. And I could have done that with while I was feeding toddlers. I could have done that while a kid was watching a show, in the afternoon. And you get good at balancing that. So I just would have picked different kinds of things to do.
Right, right. And I like what you said earlier about getting really intentional about planning ahead. I think that's so crucial because if you're in that constant state of feeling like you should be elsewhere, like you mentioned, you end up actually being so inefficient in what you're doing. So even if you are like quote unquote focused on the task at hand, if your head subconsciously is someplace else, you're not really focused, right? You are only operating at 70% or, not your full potential. And that shows in your work, that shows in your energy, that shows in your happiness and your
Yeah.
fulfillment in all of those areas. So I think that's super important, like being really clear and intentional and setting those boundaries and those time blocks and that schedule ahead of time so that you can really be successful in that space.
I love what you said about not being able to be when you're not fully present, you're just not as good at your job. And we have all of as moms, we have all of these different jobs that we need to do. And so I don't want to show up 60, 70% for someone I'm working for. I also don't want to show up 60, 70% for my kids. I mean, yes, we all have off days, but I want to be as close to 100% as I can in every area of my life. And so I that's a choice in how I you structure your mind to be able to do that. So because your kids can tell when you are not fully there. They just can. And they deserve so much more than that.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, let's pivot a little bit. Let's talk about space. So I live in the Bay Area, and homes here are just not that big. Like we got really creative in our home, and I created I can't say my husband helped, created an office space in one of my closets in my master bedroom. Like if you're listening right now, this is 100% true. I am coming at you direct from my home office recording studio, AKA the closet. So what are some tips you have on how you can create a work from home space, even if you don't have a lot of room in your house?
So I relate to you 100%. We have 4 kids. Our house is not that large. And if you were to see my space, so if anyone who's watching the video, it's going to look like I'm in this beautiful decorated office. And this is totally just a screen. I am in a small basement room that mostly houses like an extra refrigerator and our food storage and a bunch of storage. It's just this tiny little corner. And so I'm with you. I think you creatively say, how can I turn a small space, if you have that luxury, right? I mean, not even have, some people don't even have that. But can I turn a small space? What is my actual need? I have recruited and helped hire people who are literally working on a desk in their bedroom, and you can see their well-made, beautiful bed behind. They've got a very neat space. So, yes, it's totally doable. I would also say if you don't even have the luxury of carving out a corner that can be dedicated to working, like a desk space, then you want to at least you want to create an intentional space. And I know I'm using that word a lot, but for the first several years that I worked from home, I literally worked on my couch with my laptop on my lap. And I had a basket, and the basket held my notebooks and my pens and my post it notes and all the things that I needed to be able to work. And sometimes I would move to the kitchen table. Sometimes I would have to go sit on the floor in my bedroom because I needed to do a call and I needed to be able to have just a blank wall behind me. And it wasn't convenient, but it was all I had. So creating, at least having a space where you've collected all of the things you need to have. And when I had that, it sent a signal to my family that I was working. So if I had the basket out, they knew I was working. I wasn't just, chilling, watching Netflix or whatever. And that also helped. They would respect my time differently, and they would respect me differently because they could tell I was working because I had my little desk basket. So those
Yeah.
are some suggestions.
Mobile workspace. Love it. And kind of like an internal switch for you as well. Like, hey, I got the basket near me, right? So mentally I'm focused, I'm prepared, I'm in this zone where I'm just going to be max efficiency, get the work done so then I can shut this laptop and kind of go back to the mode of being a mom or the mode of being a wife or whatever else, I have on my agenda for the day.
Yeah, and it was nice because at the end I could put everything away and I would put it in the basket, and I knew I was done for the day as well. And so it worked both ways. I knew when I was starting, I knew when I was finishing, and I always knew where everything was when I actually had to start working, which is
Yeah.
always good when you have to work as well.
Yes. That's why I like my office closet too, because
Yeah.
I can just close the door. And now I have a rolling chair that just fits right in. So it's like, I can shut my office door just like any other room and, not have that be a temptation. Maybe if I felt like I had to get more stuff done, but I really wanted to disconnect from work, I can not visually see it all the time. I can feel like the mess isn't in other parts of my house where I'm always looking at it or have to see it. Even though I do try and keep my office space fairly tidy, some days it's not. But,
Yeah, and you know what? I'm laughing because you talked about a rolling chair, and I just upgraded to a rolling chair as well. And I feel like when you are creating a home space, getting an actual office chair is a huge upgrade because up until then,
yes.
you're using your kitchen table or a folding table chair. It's whatever you can find. And so as we're upgrading our space, it's like we feel so official.
Yes, I think that's so true. Yeah, it hit me like mid-pandemic when I was working from home. I was a corporate executive plus doing my business, and I was like, okay, the back just cannot take it anymore. Even though this chair is beautiful, it was like a beautiful sitting chair that looked great on calls. It was not helping me in any way, shape, or form. So it was time for like an ergonomic chair. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what if you're someone transitioning to a work from home role or wanting to transition to a work from home role? What should you do or not do when applying or interviewing for these types of positions?
Okay, so I'm going to do one of each. The first thing is don't assume that you don't have transferable skills. Every industry has its own lingo. And if you are trying to transfer to a completely remote type of company, there's a good chance that they're going to talk differently and they're going to have different lingo, but it doesn't mean you don't have transferable skills. So that's the first thing is I would say be open to trying to figure out how to describe what you have done in new ways and then what I would go do is I would go figure out, okay, so if I have these skills that worked really well in a corporate environment, what is the way that people talk about this in the online world? So there are certain, I'm trying to think of a really good example. Let's say you were a marketing manager for a mid-size real estate agency, and you specifically did that role. Well, being a digital marketing manager or being a marketing manager for a completely online remote company working from home is a very strong transferable skill set. But you may or may not have worked with as much with, say, funnels and websites and social media schedulers. I'm just pulling some things out of my hat. And so if you're going to apply to a completely remote environment and transfer industries, you want to go find out what are the things they use and learn some of the language. So when you talk about your transferable skills, you're able to talk about it in a way that actually makes sense to the new industry. Because I think almost everyone has transferable skills, but you can easily see that there are some people when they do this haven't done the research. And so you don't know how to help them fit as well.
So, do you recommend, like, everybody's got a resume, right? Do you recommend that before you actually send your resume to that role, you take a look at the job description and maybe tweak your resume to really speak the language of the company?
Yes, I would say it almost always shows when someone has taken the time to make their resume and or cover letter or application answers depending on how the person's accepting people. You can tell when they've cared enough to take that extra time. They've researched the company, they're using language that pulls from the vision statement or the mission statement of the company. You can tell they've read the job description and they're pulling vocabulary. It's actually one of the biggest tips I would give someone trying to stand out when they're applying. You can tell when someone's excited about the company and they've figured out how to talk to that person. And job descriptions are treasure maps of keywords that you want to pull out. And if you take the time, not all digital entrepreneurs actually ask for a resume. It just depends. But if they're asking for a resume, yes, take a couple minutes and just tweak a couple things. It will move you forward in the process.
Yeah. And I like that we talked a little bit about transferable skills. I think this is such an underutilized and sort of foreign concept to a lot of moms out there, especially if they've taken a break from the workforce, because I think we really undervalue all of the things that we're doing as moms at home. And I've never been a stay-at-home mom. I've always had a job or done my business, but there are a lot of things I do as a mom that I think can certainly translate into an environment. Hey, negotiation skills with a toddler, that is impressive. Okay. Flexibility, multitasking, which I'm not a proponent to multitask everything, but I do think the fact that when you're a mom, you have so much in your mental load and you're still able to keep all the balls in the air. That is a skill set that is really, really crucial. And the fact that you're able to deliver like all of those things within deadline, you're really reliable. So what are some other things that you think are really transferable if someone has taken a break from the workforce and is thinking about re-entering?
Yeah, for sure. So, just off the top of my head, I think, well, first of all, I'm going to list some things, but I don't want to fall into the trap of stereotyping. But these are going to be some things that I've seen a lot. So, moms tend to understand social media. They understand how Instagram works. They understand how Facebook works. They may understand how TikTok or Snapchat works, either because they've watched their kids use it or because they're using it. That means that you're well situated to transition into a social media type role. If you like to make pretty things, if you tend to have a really good eye for design, then learning some simple graphic design skills and being able to do, I mean, we're not talking about designing the next, you know, piece of art that's going to be put in a museum. We're talking about simple social media graphics or simple website design. Those are easily transferable things those are learnable skills because you already have the natural inclination. The other thing is to look really hard at what have you volunteered to do when you're volunteering, whether you're volunteering in your kids' schools, you're volunteering at church, maybe there's a community or a neighborhood type thing you're volunteering. Those are highly transferable. If you have run your HOA or you have been on the PTA committee and you've helped run an event, those I would say that is equivalent to doing paid work. So that's highly transferable as well. And then if you're, yeah, if you're organized, if you're techie, if you're the one who sets up all your family's computers and you kind of understand new software, you're going to be naturally inclined to be able to transfer into the tech world and some of those softer tech skills, not like coding and things. So everybody who's running a home and involved with their kids' lives is doing things that will transfer to work online. Absolutely.
All right. Okay. So we've talked a lot about the pros of working from home. What about the cons? Is there anything you can do like before you sign up for a work from home job or before you decide to make that transition to tell if you'll actually like it?
Yes. So if you want to be aware of just how much time you can commit to a company, right? Some companies will expect you to be available for communication 9 to 5, even if you don't actually work 9 to 5. Others will be very clear that, you know what, we work in the mornings and then it really kind of peters out in the afternoon, or we just need you to take a project, do it, and then come back and report. You won't need to be in team meetings and things like that. So you want to read the job description and kind of get a sense. If they use words like fast paced, quick to pivot, flexible, flexible with new projects, those might be some indicators that it's a higher paced, more intense environment and requires more from you. If they are very clear in their job description, that's going to help. If they're really organized, that's you're going to know that what they're telling you to do is what's actually going to happen. One of the big flags I think that you can watch for is if it's not an organized hiring process, it's not going to be an organized company because it's kind of like the beginning, it's the tip of the iceberg for how they do everything. So you have to know what you're wanting to commit to, and then you have to be looking for that. Another thing that I might you might want to be looking for is just exactly what is the vocabulary around the personality they're looking for. Are they looking for energetic? Are they looking for, like I said, flexible? And make sure that that is a match for you, because sometimes we can look at the skill set and we think, oh, I would do a good job at that job. But they describe a type of person and you think, I'm not sure I'm going to fit with the personality of that company. And you sometimes don't know that until you get into an interview. But that can also be something you want to look for. And those can be cons or pros depending on whether you're looking for certain things in that company or not.
Right. So I wouldn't say, like, based on your answer, there are no umbrella cons. It's really just dependent on the company culture and how that fits you.
Yeah, I think if you know working from home is right from you. I mean, if you know that you can work without the intense social mix, you're okay with just you and your kids and not having lots of coworkers around you. If you know you can buckle down and focus. I mean, there's some basic work from home things that you have to be able to say, yes, I can do. I can schedule my time, I can hold myself accountable. But once you've passed that threshold, it really is. I mean, working from home is everything from I'm at my desk 9 to 5, just like if I were going to a corporate office, to I work when and where I want for 20 hours a week, and the rest is my time, right? So after you've hit the threshold, it's all about what do I actually think I'm looking for.
Right. And at Integrate Up, do you focus solely on full time roles, part time roles, consultative roles?
So we do both. So we wouldn't really focus on consultation client work because that's someone you're the clients we hire are going to go out and find those people themselves. But we do both full-time employees with benefits, 401k, we do those kinds of jobs, and we also do 20-hour a week, everything from VAs to managers to all kinds. So we cover the gamut, and we also provide a forum where people can post jobs as well that we aren't doing but are also fully remote positions, and that's in a Facebook group called Hire Up Online. And so if you're looking for this kind of work, you can come find it with us or with people who are using our Facebook group even if we're not running the job.
Great. All right. Well, before we wrap up this episode, I always like to ask my guests some just for fun, random questions in our lightning round. So, are you ready?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. What is your guilty pleasure TV show?
So this sounds so funny, but I love to watch reality TV shows, and particularly like makeup shows or design shows. It's all the things I'm not good at, but I love watching those reality TV shows.
Yeah, nothing wrong with a little reality TV. What book are you reading right now?
So I'm reading Mike Michalowicz just came out with a new book. He's most well known for his book Profit First, but I'm reading his new marketing book called Get Different. I actually just finished it and it was amazing.
Awesome. Would you call yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
I would actually say I'm an ambivert, which is a term that was coined out of the book called Quiet about introverts, because I can work for 12 hours straight and not need to talk to a single person. I'm fine staying at my house for days and never seeing people. But when I'm with people, I never want to leave. And I will be the last person at the party if there's someone still talking and breathing. So I think I'm both.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Let's see. What is one thing you never leave the house without?
Oh, my cell phone. I feel like that's the cop out answer, but it's so true. I can't leave without it.
Yeah, no, it is true. It is true. What's one app you can't live without?
Oh my goodness. So it's probably a toss up. If I'm just doing life, my Google Calendar, because with 4 kids and a husband and everything, I just could not keep track of my life. But if I'm in a car, it would be Google Maps because I get lost all the time. I get lost with Google Maps, but it was so much worse before Google Maps existed. So
Just
yeah,
Google in general. You need
I
Google
need,
in your life.
yeah, I just need Google. I need Google in my life.
All right. And what if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life? What would it be? Calories don't count.
So this would be a huge toss up between cheesecake and hummus. And
Wow. Such
I
different
know.
answers.
Yeah, but I think the commonality there is they both have similar textures, and I don't actually taste super well, and I think it's a texture thing.
Interesting. Okay. Could you eat hummus just with a spoon like that?
I do eat hummus with just a we make our homemade hummus without lemon juice because that's a little too much for me. And my son and I will eat it like a side dish all the time.
Wow. Wow. Learning so many things about you, ToriAnn. All right. Well, before we head out officially, just remind us where we can find you, please.
Yeah. So if you're a CEO looking to hire, please come to IntegrateUp.co. We have a free rate sheet that you can find out what people are charging in the industry for any position you want to hire for. If you are looking for work and you want to work from home, the best place to find us is in our Facebook group. It's called Higher Up Online, and it's totally free. And like I said, we post jobs in there almost every week, and there are lots of other people who are also posting jobs in there, and they are only completely remote online positions. So it's a great place to find legitimate work to work from home.
Amazing. Well, thank you so, so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And I know our listeners got a lot out of this chat.
Well, thank you for having me. It was absolutely wonderful.
You've been listening to the Mama Work It podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and would love if you could take a quick minute to leave me a review on whichever platform you're listening from, and maybe even send a note to a fellow mama friend recommending it. Reviews and recs help this podcast grow and reach more like-minded, awesome moms. And if you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click that button so we can stay in touch, girl. By the way, if you haven't checked out the Mama Work It website, please do. There are lots of free resources and great articles there that can help you with the juggle of work life, mom life, wife life, fill in the blank life. So head on over. Thanks again for being part of the tribe. I'll see you soon, but in the meantime, keep on working it, mama.